Hi, this is Mac Pritchard. I had a cycling accident recently and broke several bones. While I recover, I need to take a short break from podcasting. So, through March 3rd, we're sharing some of our most popular interviews from the last 5 years. I hope you enjoy them, and thank you for being a listener. This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, find the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm your host, Mac Pritchard. I'm also the founder of Mac's List. It's a job board in the Pacific Northwest that helps professionals find fulfilling careers. One of the best ways to get good at job hunting is to talk to people who do it well. That's why once a month I interview a Mac's List reader who found a job they love. Our guest today is Alfredo Moreno. He's the Community Relations Manager at the Rock Creek campus of Portland Community College. Alfredo Moreno knows the difference connections can make in a career. In a story you can find on the Mac's List website, Alfredo shares that he was intentional and strategic during a long job search. He also set clear goals, used tools to stay organized, and built a network of support. But after applying for the job he has today at Portland Community College, Alfredo kept finding and making connections with people there. That deepened both his understanding and relationships inside the college before his first interview on campus. Alfredo, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. You're the Community Relations Manager at the Rock Creek campus of Portland Community College. Alfredo, why do you love your job?
Well, I'm definitely still learning everything that is possible in this job. And that's one of the greatest things about it is when I walked in, there wasn't a script of here's what you do every single day. I had some notes of what my predecessor did, but the opportunity to use my skills, my passions in the way that I think best serves the students and staff of my campus is on the table for me. So I really enjoy that it's kind of a choose your own adventure in some ways. There's a lot of different ways to get to the ultimate goal of creating opportunity and success for our students. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface 1 year in of how to do that using what I do best. And so that the flexibility and the ability to be the best version of me en route to that goal is just really exciting. And I would just say, there's no day, there's no week, that's exactly the same for me and my job. And I know there's probably a lot of people out there who feel that way, but the number of different hats I am expected to wear and can wear because I choose to keeps you really it's very hard to get in a rut.
Okay. Yeah. So there's variety, there's autonomy, and there's the chance, as you say, to create your own adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now let's talk about your job search. What was your biggest challenge, Alfredo?
Well, the biggest challenge was certainly the length of the overall job search. I was basically, I think as I wrote, I basically had my periscope up for about a year and a half, but really got intentional about it for 9 months. It was a long 9 months. I mean, it's.
Were you between positions at that time?
No, I was in a position in a career, kind of middle management career, and so that was another challenge of it. Was I was almost 20 years into my communications career. This was a different style of communications that I was doing than I'd done the first 10 years.
You were working in marketing and communications.
I was doing a lot more copywriting and kind of business to business, where I started off in media relations and communications. And it was just it was a long process, but also I felt like I didn't have a lot of flexibility to be able to go for a job that seemed like a great passion, but take a large pay cut in order to do it.
Okay. So how did you deal with that, Alfredo? Because I know there are listeners out there who are mid-career professionals like you, and they want to make a change, and they're not in a position to take a pay cut. And you made a sector switch. You left marketing and communications. Now you work in community relations. How did you deal with that switch?
Well, the switch itself, It was a little different. Yes, I've never done a community relations job. And as I said, I'm still very much learning what that means. As far as moving from one sector to maybe a sector that didn't seem to connect cleanly, really I focused on what I tried to focus is on my big picture skill sets. Basically my elevator pitch was one of the things I really worked on from the start and continued to work on it up until the day before I had my final interview, of just what is my story? What do I hang my hat on? The things I hang my hat on are things that were built through every stage of my career and including the current one. So it's not something that's only for my athletic side or only for my copywriting side and only for this chapter. So I really wanted to focus on what is the big things that I do well that I can utilize and have utilized in each of these stops.
And how did you figure that out?
I just spent a lot of time with it. Frankly, I was on a vacation when I say I really started going into this intentionally. I was on a vacation with my wife in a lovely place, and I sat by the pool and I just worked on my elevator pitch while she was in meetings. And I said, okay, I wrote down things. I wrote ideas. How would you describe yourself to somebody? And I just kept throwing out ideas. It was really like a personal branding exercise, basically. And I had some experience doing that for
Sure,
others.
you had a professional background in marketing.
Yeah. And so I did that until there were some things that, okay. And then finally I developed these 3 areas that I really felt described me and when I looked in the mirror and saw myself as a professional, what did I see and what did I want to share with other people?
What advice would you give listeners who don't have the background that you do in branding and marketing? How would you encourage someone to create their own elevator pitch?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I didn't apply any special learned, application. I really just, I thought, what makes me special? What do I think? What are things I've done well? What are things I've really enjoyed doing that I'd like to keep doing in any job that I take or any hobby that I do? So I really tried to focus on areas that I knew I had done well. Writing, storytelling for me was one, but getting out of the deliverables even to authentic relationship building was something that I really said, I've done that throughout my career. And it is something I want to share with people that I am, especially with the job I have now in community relations, which is much more interpersonal. I thought that was important to share where I've succeeded in that. And so, yeah.
So when considering writing your own personal branding statement or your elevator pitch, think about what makes you special. Yeah. Any other tips for listeners? I mentioned earlier, it was a long process. So for me, what really helped me is I utilized a goal setting, goal achieving tool. It was a journal that I used. There's many kind of like it. Essentially what it boiled down to is I wanted to hold myself accountable to areas that I knew I had to have some results in each week, each month in order to advance this job search. So one was networking. One was spending time with my portfolio and my resume. And the other was really just doing the legwork of finding applications. Applications take a long time if you do them seriously. And I know there is some advice out there, don't hold a number to, don't be more strategic about the number of applications. For me personally, it helped to push me forward to have a low number of jobs that I wanted to put my name forward on. I was very hungry to switch my careers, and I thought that helped keep me moving. Did I go hunt at enough places where I thought I could be a good candidate? Okay. And did I apply? Yeah. So you were applying strategically. You created a process that you held yourself accountable for to do a certain amount of work every week. I'm guessing it wasn't an overwhelming amount, a few hours a week perhaps?
Yes, it was a few hours a week. And look, it's, I've mentioned this before, job hunting is nobody's idea of a great hobby. So I wouldn't say it was.
I also have to add, earlier you mentioned you were on a vacation and you were thinking about your job search.
Yeah.
So.
It's not the greatest, use of being present and looking around at all the beautiful things on vacation. But if you have a strong desire to make a change for yourself, you've got to kind of grind and week by week, month by month, like an athlete would trying to improve themselves for a marathon or something else. And you got to have your gates that you pass through. Okay, I did this, I accomplished these. They all kind of add up as you go. And for me, I think ultimately it got me to where I was in really good shape 9 months later.
It's almost like a training regimen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I think it ended up being. And there were some failures along the way and humbling moments for sure, but inch by inch.
I know before you worked in marketing and communications here in Portland, you had a career in sports public information for universities. So that athletic world is very familiar to you.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it was very familiar. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So again, just thinking about that, making that switch, you had an elevator pitch, you knew what made you special, you created a program with deliverables, you tracked your progress. In hindsight, Alfredo, is there something you could have done that might have shortened the process, or was there just 9 months worth of work that you had to get through?
Then probably the number one thing is just, this is something I'm actively trying to fight right now. Is you get relatively comfortable in your job and your career, and you stop kind of a lot of times reaching out to people and connecting. And so I would say, had I maintained my network a little more aggressively and spent more time quarterly with people who had similar roles and just talked about the environment here in Portland, I found myself when it was time to get going, I found myself a little flat-footed and, okay, who do I know who works in similar fields and has similar roles? Okay, let me reacquaint. And looking back, it would have been great had those relationships already been kind of nurtured and warmed up. It would have been a little faster and a little easier, I think. Yeah.
You did change careers. You moved from marketing and communications to community relations. When you saw this job posting, you said in your article on the Max List website, you knew it was the perfect fit for you.
Yeah.
2 questions, Alfredo. How did you know that? And then how did you communicate that in both your cover letter, your resume, and your interviews? Because you did have to make the case that you had skills that were transferable.
Right. I read the job description, and it just for me it wanted somebody with an array of skills, of communication skills, of engagement skills. It was a broad job description, but I looked at each of those and I said, I've done that at every stop I've been, or I've done, maybe I did more of, I was more of a public presence at my previous job in athletics, but I could say, I've done that at a high level, and I've done this at a high level. But mostly for me, beyond the skills was really just, I didn't have to look and say, I think I could be pretty happy doing it. Let me talk myself into it a little bit. It was, I said, the opportunity to go work for a community college that's looking to serve students throughout the metro area, specifically those who are coming from more underrepresented areas. And, I said, man, this is things I'm passionate about in my life outside of work. And it was a chance to kind of merge personal passions and priorities with what I did to make a living. So, yeah.
And I imagine a lot of the work that you did along the way helped you get clear about both your goals and your passions and what you might be excited about. Yeah. Good. What didn't work in your job search?
Well, I did attend some mixers, some networking things, and I enjoyed the ones that MaxList put. And honestly, I would find the panelists very interesting and engaging. I personally struggle with the networking in large groups.
You're not alone.
Yeah. I have to do that a lot in my current job, and I'm still working to get better at that. And so that was an area where I said, sometimes I would go to an event. I'd say, good on you for going to the event. That was one of the metrics I had for myself, to attend X amount of these per month, per quarter, to get out there and try. But sometimes I felt like, did I make a dent? Did I make any sort of impact there on my search? Not sure. I would still am trying to sharpen those tools so that in those group settings of networking, I make a little better of an impact there. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what did work. Mm-hmm. What's your number one job hunting tip for our listeners?
Well, I will go back to the elevator pitch, and I was actually talking with a friend of mine the other day, and who's maybe interested in getting the start going, in starting the hunt. I said, you got to look beyond your job description at this one place, because a lot of people will do that and say, boy, I do this for this company. I don't know if I can. This is the only place that I could probably do this. And especially for those of us who were in more, specialized fields or niche industries, you got to look at the bigger picture things that make you a great creative or a great whatever it is you do well, and zoom out a little bit, lock onto those, because those will apply in many different areas. So elevator pitch and the why behind what you're doing. That's probably the one thing. Right before I had my final interview, I really went into kind of telling a personal story about why I connected beyond just I have these number of years of experience. This is something that's personal to me, and here's why: because of things I've experienced, things my family has gone through. And I think that really resonated through to the hiring committee, to the forum audience I had to stand in front of, and things of that nature. So it's knowing yourself, knowing your story, and how it connects to the job.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Alfredo. And to learn more about Alfredo Moreno's job search, visit maxlist.org/stories. And check out the MaxList website for dozens of other success stories. On the second Friday of every month, we share a new interview with a MaxList reader who found a dream job. Go to maxlist.org/stories. And thank you for listening to today's bonus episode of Find Your Dream Job. This is Mac Pritchard again. I hope you enjoyed this interview from our archives. Please join us next week as we share through March 3rd some of our most popular interviews from the last 5 years. And thank you for being a listener.